10-Minute Murder contains depictions of actual crimes. What you are about to hear is real and violent in nature. Discretion is advised. This is 10-Minute Murder.
Welcome to the brief and bingeable true crime podcast, 10-Minute Murder. My name is Joe. I'm the host, and I appreciate you being here and listening. Hi. Today we're talking about the murder of a singer that was an absolute star in the world of Tejano music and was quickly becoming huge in the United States. She was portrayed in a movie by Jennifer Lopez about her life and death, and another movie more recently. It's not quite as good in my opinion, but still worth watching. Selena was killed by her fan club president that had become obsessed with her and was also about to be taken down for embezzling funds. Before you hear the story, be sure you are subscribed to 10-Minute Murder so that you don't miss any future episodes, and you'll be able to listen the moment the episodes are released. Now, the murder of Selena Quintanilla Perez. Selena was born in April of 1971 in Lake Jackson, Texas. She was the youngest child of Abraham and Marcela Quintanilla. Abraham was a musician himself and noticed that when Selena was just 6 years old, she was already so talented. He said her timing and her pitch were both perfect. In 1981, Abraham opened a Tex-Mex restaurant called Papagayos. On a regular basis, the musical family of A.B., Selena's brother, and Suzette, her sister, would perform. Selena would obviously sing. But after a year, an extreme amount of oil excess drove the price of it way down, and in an area where the economy depended on steady oil prices, it caused a recession. That recession hit Papagayos hard, and Abraham was forced to close the restaurant. They filed for bankruptcy and were evicted from their home. They packed it up, but didn't go too far. They settled in Corpus Christi, Texas. Abraham became the manager of a new band he formed consisting of his kids. He named them Selena y los Dinos. This became the new family business, and they played basically anywhere that would pay them: street corners, weddings, quinceañeras, and fairs. Selena was already an amazing singer, and with practice became more and more polished. The popularity of the band grew, and so did their schedule of performing dates. Selena started missing some school, and when she did show up, she was obviously very tired. Teachers and administrators began to notice, and they contacted Abraham and Marcela about it. He told them to mind their own business after Abraham was threatened with being told on to the Texas Board of Education. The teachers thought that the conditions Selena was being subjected to were inappropriate for a child her age. She was in the 8th grade at this time, and Abraham pulled her out of school. She did, though, earn a high school diploma by 17 at the American School of Correspondence in Chicago, and later enrolled in business administration classes at Pacific Western University. Selena y los Dinos reached a level of needing to travel more and to further away places. Abraham found a raggedy old bus, they fixed it up a little, and named it Big Bertha. Traveling in Big Bertha for the next few years, playing shows, they sometimes were barely able to afford food and gas to get to the next gig. In 1984, Selena recorded her first album. She wanted to make an English album. That was vetoed by Abraham. She recorded a Tejano-style album, which is Spanish-language music with influences of polka, jazz, and country music. It's very popular with the Mexicans living in the United States. This was pretty difficult for Selena because, first of all, that's not necessarily the kind of music she personally liked. And second, she didn't speak Spanish. It's pretty amazing to think that a singer so popular with a Spanish-speaking audience couldn't speak conversational Spanish at first. During recording sessions for that first album, she had to learn Spanish phonetically with help from Abraham. In 1987, at the Tejano Music Awards, Selena won Female Vocalist of the Year. For the next 9 consecutive years, she won that same award. Still, Selena y los Dinos had trouble getting booked in some venues to play because the promoters said Selena was a woman in a genre historically dominated by men. No doubt the promoters that wouldn't hire the band were men. By 1988, the band released 5 more albums. At the 1989 Tejano Music Awards, Selena performed. The audience included Jose Behar of EMI Latin Records and Sony Music Latin. They both wanted to sign her to major deals. Being the manager of the band and the one that made the decisions, Abraham chose EMI, despite the fact that Sony offered twice as much money to sign. EMI said they'd consider letting them put out a crossover English album, which is what Selena wanted. She and her brother AB, who also produced the band's music, wrote and recorded several English songs for the EMI executives to listen to. The crossover album was denied, and Selena was told that she needed a bigger fan base to sell that kind of album. She made another Spanish album featuring a cover of the song Sukiyaki, which is a Japanese song that has also been done in English. No doubt you've heard it. With the help of that song, Selena peaked at number 7 on the US Billboard Regional Mexican Albums chart. That same year, Coca-Cola wanted Selena as a spokesperson in Texas. AB teamed up with a musician named Chris Perez to create the commercial jingle. Chris had joined Selena y Los Dinos a few months prior as a guitarist. He had a girlfriend back home in San Antonio, but quickly fell for Selena. He tried to keep his distance for a while, but found that it wasn't helping. At a Pizza Hut one night, Selena and Chris sat and talked. They told each other how they felt and decided to make a go out of a relationship. A secret relationship. They knew Abraham wouldn't have it. In 1990, Selena's next album was released. It was another big success. Still Spanish songs on this one too. It was around this time that a fan of Selena's approached Abraham asking to start a fan club. It was Yolanda Saldivar, a registered nurse from San Antonio. Abraham, thinking it would generate more exposure for the band, agreed. Yolanda quickly wriggled her way into the family and became close with Selena. Selena trusted her and named her acting president of the fan club in 1991. In 1992, Suzette, Selena's sister, saw her and Chris flirting and immediately snitched to Abraham. Of course, he was ticked, like they knew he would be. He kicked Chris off the bus and told him whatever they had was over. In fact, it was not over. They continued the relationship and had the approval of her mother, Marcella. Abraham called Chris a cancer in his family and fired him from the band. They continued their relationship in secret. Knowing that Abraham would never really approve of the relationship anyway, they decided to elope. Within hours of it happening on April 2nd, 1992, the media found out and announced it. Abraham was ticked times 10 and alienated himself for a while. Chris and Selena moved into a Corpus Christi apartment together, and her father eventually came around. He apologized and welcomed Chris back into the band. Selena's next album was out and critically acclaimed as her breakthrough album. She gained more success, more notoriety, and more awards. By 1994, she started a clothing line and opened boutiques to sell what she had designed. Yolanda, the fan club president, was put in charge of the boutiques after they were impressed with the way she ran the fan club. By 1995, Selena was an absolute star with huge success, big enough that she began work on her English crossover album. But with Yolanda at the helm, her boutiques started to slip. It didn't make much sense because Selena was as popular as ever. It would stand to reason that the boutiques would be as well. When they looked into it, they saw that Yolanda had fired much of the staff. If she didn't like an employee for literally any reason at all, boom, they were let go. The staff that remained strongly disliked Yolanda and began complaining to Selena about it. She still trusted that Yolanda had her best interests in mind, so she dismissed the complaints. So the employees started telling Abraham all about Yolanda's behavior. And we know that he doesn't trust anyone outside of the family anyway, so he believed them. They also told him something disturbing. They told Abraham that she had become very creepily obsessed with Selena. About that time, he also started to hear about phone calls to the fan club where members had paid a fee but never received anything at all in return. Abraham discovered that Yolanda Saldivar had embezzled more than $30,000 from the fan club and boutique. On March 9th, 1995, he got Suzette and had a meeting with Yolanda. They confronted her about the missing money and told her that if she didn't provide evidence about where this money went, he'd get the police involved. He also told Yolanda something that her obsession couldn't take. Abraham told her that she was no longer allowed contact with Selena. Selena, however, didn't want that. She still kind of thought Yolanda was a key to the future success of her boutiques. Abraham still insisted on seeing evidence of the money on bank statements. Yolanda delayed and delayed before claiming she was beaten up and raped while in Mexico. On March 31st, 1995, Selena met with Yolanda in her hotel room at the Days Inn in Corpus Christi. Selena demanded the financial paperwork they had been asking for. Yolanda pulled a pistol from her purse and pointed it at Selena. Selena tried to run, but Yolanda fired a shot that hit Selena in the lower right shoulder, severing an artery. Gushing blood, Selena continued to try to escape. The trail of blood coming from Selena was nearly 400 feet long before she made it to the motel lobby. She named the person that shot her and the room number, then collapsed on the floor. Yolanda, still chasing after her, was heard yelling obscenities at Selena. Yolanda then got into her truck and attempted to leave, but she was spotted by a responding officer, and after a 9.5-hour standoff, Yolanda Saldivar surrendered. At the hospital, attempts to save Selena were unsuccessful. Fans were devastated and compared her death to John Lennon, Elvis Presley, and John F. Kennedy in the way that they were mourning. Her funeral drew 60,000 attendees wanting to pay their respects. A few days after the funeral, Howard Stern went on his radio show and mocked the mourners and fans of her music, saying that Spanish people have the worst taste in music. He played Selena's songs with gunshots in the background. He later apologized, but not before a disorderly arrest warrant was issued. Then Governor of Texas, George W. Bush, declared Selena's birthday, April 12th, Selena Day in the state, saying that Selena represented the essence of South Texas culture. October 1995, a Houston jury convicted Yolanda Saldivar of first-degree murder and sentenced her to life in prison. She's eligible for parole in 2025. That's today's 10-Minute Murder, the brief and bingeable true crime podcast. Thanks for listening today, and I apologize for the way my voice sounds today. It sounds a little weird and I'm a little stuffy. I've got allergies happening, but I still wanted to get this episode out to you. So here it is with my weird sounding voice. Before you go, make sure you subscribe if you haven't. If you enjoy the podcast, rate and review wherever you listen, and connect with me on social media. Thanks for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Have a good night.